Sakura team! I just wanted to cover some of the latest news regarding Transport Fever, and specifically Transport Fever 3, which was announced just a couple of days ago. And there are some interesting things in the footage that we have seen so far, which looks positive, and there are some things that give me a little bit of pause for concern, shall we say. So, it's not possible for me to record a trailer video from either a computer or from the PlayStation Store. So we'll be looking at some of the screenshots that are available. But by all means, search it up. It is on the PlayStation Store. Just add in Transport Fever and Transport Fever 3 will come up and you can watch the trailer for yourself and make up your own mind. So let's get stuck in and have a look at some of the things we learned from the trailer and some of the things we might expect from Transport Fever 3. Right, first off, let's have a look at the splash screen. So what does the splash screen tell us? Well, there's not a lot, and look, splash screens are what they are, and there's no guarantee that what's in that will appear in the game. But a couple of interesting things are perhaps the scale of the city. The city is massive. I mean, it certainly seems very, very massive to me compared with the Transport Fever 2 that I played. So we've obviously got quite a massive city. We've also got quite a big mountain. And it's not to say you can't do big mountains in Transport Fever 2. We've obviously got this quite dramatic scenery, and I think some of that plays through some of the other parts of the video. Probably not an awful lot of other things different. They've sort of, in a ways, replicated the Transport Fever 2 splash screen. What I will note of particular interest is the cargo helicopter that you can see up in the top right. Now that's interesting. I really haven't played much with helicopters, but I don't think there is a base cargo helicopter. You might be able to get a modded helicopter in, but there's certainly not one in the base game. And of course, the release date, which at the minute is slated for 2026. I don't know what Nacon and Urban Games are like in terms of releasing stuff like this and how up to date they are with their time frames and things. So sometime in 2026, they're announcing this in midsummer. Let's possibly assume that it's going to be roughly the same time, I guess. So let's predict 12 months from now, maybe even a little sooner, maybe even first quarter of 2026. But for now, we simply don't know. The next two screenshots I like and don't like in the same vein, mainly because of that tagline along the bottom that this is not in-game footage. Now, that kind of annoys me, and I don't like it when they do that, because this is actually obviously a cinematic. Now, the question is, they have to be somewhat realistic about what they're proposing to sell us. And the things that are in here very interesting are that you have this obviously elevated train which is passing over footpaths and things, and we can't currently do that on Transport Fever 2. The way the roads come together in the junction is also very interesting, because we can't do that either on Transport Fever 2. And you've obviously got what appears to be two one-way streets connecting to this junction with another bi-directional street, and that you can't do either. And then there's it looks to be it looks to be like a mix of surface train and elevated train on the left hand side of the train station, and you can see that train station is shoehorned in there pretty tight, and a number of different rooftops on that train station, suggesting a bit more customization, given that one of the roofs appears to transit over another roof, and then we have an open area, etc. And some staggered train tracks, which look to be interesting, because they're not the usual train track spacings that you would get on Transport Fever 2. And of course, the thing right here which interests me a lot, I was just mentioning it, is a pedestrian crossing, an elevated pedestrian crossing, which is a pedestrian path. So this suggests that there may be opportunities to add in. Now, it may be it may be a pre-designed shape, and you don't get much chance to customize it, and it's like an asset you drop in, and it will determine just exactly how it fits, or it may be something that is a little bit more customizable. We don't know. Does it include other things like bicycle pads? No idea. Tinfoil hat time. So yeah, so we have that one. That's the first of these not in-game footages we want to have a look at. The second one, this is also flagged as not in-game. Now, obviously, the biggest thing is just look at how many levels of traffic are going around this teardrop-shaped junction, and what that might mean, and the way it all shapes together. Now, this is more a la City Skylines in terms of how the junctions function. And again, sadly, not in-game footage. So we have this massive, and it's definitely, well, right down the bottom there, we've got a train track. So right at the very bottom of all of this, there's a train track running through, right? And I can't really see how many tracks there are. It looks to be not much more than 2, which is fine. And then obviously we have this road passing east-west, or right-left if you want, which is actually a dual-lane highway. So it's 6 lanes altogether, each highway being 3. Then you've got another kind of north-south, which is the same, a dual 3-lane highway. And then we have this other highway over the top, which is a dual, it looks to be, in some cases, 5 lanes, 4 or 5 lanes wide. And we've obviously got this this junction that bends around it. Could we do that now? I don't think so, because the issue is adding lanes. So we can't. The question that this answers is, can you add individual lanes? Because what it's doing is it's taking the 3 or 4 lane highway specifically, that is the major junction going north, south, east, west, right at the very top, and you're able to split the lanes off or add the lanes, merge the lanes in however you want. You can't do that with Transport Fever 2, and I have bemoaned it a little bit, in that it does mean that some of these fancy junctions that you could make in City Skylines, you've got whirlpool junctions, you've got clover leaves, you've got things like this, you've got a whole bunch, you've got trumpet junctions, and a whole bunch of other things. Those things are not available to us currently in Transport Fever 2. If this is what they're aiming to pull off, I think it will be great, and I think it will work very well. And I think that that's something that we could really enjoy. One of the other little things that's down here is some interesting things on top of the buildings, but there's also car parks attached to the buildings, which is pretty neat. Now the question is, can we paint in car parks? Are these painted in, or do they come with the asset? And that's a question, because these assets, they spawn themselves currently in Transport Fever. You don't get a choice into what you get. They do spawn themselves. So are they spawning in with these assets, or is this something that you can add in or not add in? I guess probably one of the disappointing things looking at this is there's actually not a huge variety of assets in terms of the buildings here. You can see some duplications and triplications. A lot of the major tower blocks look very, very similar. It's not clear if they're an individual item in some cases, like the one at the top left, or if they are combined as a single asset. But you can see there's quite a bit of repetition around the area. There is this big thing down at the bottom right, which looks significantly different. Now I don't know what that is. Is that a train station, or a bus station or something? I don't really know. But yeah, again, sadly, not in-game footage. So is this aspirational? Is this what they're hoping to get? Is they just haven't nailed it so far? Sure hope so. Now, this one and the next one are sort of tied together. Now, this is very interesting, because this is very new. This is obviously a very large-scale industrial farm operation, and interestingly enough, just look at the state of the countryside around this operation. This is way more in terms of field development and field detail and various other bits and pieces than we have had before. Now, we might surmise that you can see that there is a sort of a small brown road around the perimeter of this object. I might suggest that that's the limit of the actual asset, although there's a little barn and silos just outside that, so might not be. And then we have what's probably placed assets beyond that, and that might also factor in with the road and the placement of the road and how the road looks. Although I note there's a little bit of sketchy loss of detail on some bits of the road. I'm not sure what that is or what that's in relation to, but that's not particularly super. And you've got different detail. You've got what appears to be shadow. Now that could be shadow from the clouds. Presumably it's meant to be cloud shadow. And you've got striation in the field. So that talks to maybe something more dynamic in terms of the visuals, in terms of the coloring. In particular, that field at the top is very different. It's got a lot of very different colors in it. But I mean, around those kinds of details in terms of that. And also you'll see we have this road that comes straight out of the middle of the asset. Now, that then is that a road that's with the asset? Or is that a road that you can now build into this? What is this? Is this a small asset that you make bigger? Can you choose to add these silos? Does it come in as it is? There's some duplication, and obviously they flip things around, and there's some rotational things, and all the rest of it have been put into play. But we got glass houses, we got bare dirt, we got a whole load of different kinds of silos all over the place. We got little barns. This looks like a major farming production place, and if this is true, and we're going to get this, and in this case it doesn't say not in-game footage, so presumably this is in-game footage, and it's a static shot that we get to walk around, I think. So you know, the question is, what is this? And how much production control does this give us? Can we produce multiple things from a single industrial farm rather than just having one farm for wheat? And just exactly how much complexity is this bringing in? Which kind of ties into the next one as well. So this is the next one, which actually, and they blend the two together. It's very similar in terms of size and scale to the farm, and this is obviously some kind of a refinery now, and ports. Now, presumably oil, some kind of hydrocarbons. I don't see gas tankers arriving, so they look predominantly like oil tankers. Although we do have gas collectors, that's the big circular balls. They tend to be used for gas more than oil, and you have the big cylindrical silos for oil. Is this what we don't know is this just a port? You can see that there's a pipeline bottom left, and then there's some kind of, I think it's a pipeline top right. Now, this could be a coastal refinery where you are dropping in oil and it's blending it into hydrocarbon products and you're picking it up, and they have an in point and an out point. They also have this this additional little tack-on port at the bottom, which seems to also have pipelines and silos attached to it. So we've got 3 ports here, and they're all a little bit different than each other, which is interesting. So it's about this customization that they're talking about. You have a very skinny one at the bottom on the left. You have a much larger one at the top on the right, although it looks to be very similar in terms of layout to the one at the bottom, but slightly different. So there's all these just little differences in terms of some of these assets, which suggests the possibility of some more customization. Maybe it's you can add in, maybe you can take out. Currently, the way you configure ports and stations and things, but certainly a little bit more different in terms of how they're pulling it together. And again, what we don't know is, I mean, we can see truck parking down there. Is that built into part of the asset? Is it added in? Is this modular? Do you add in these modules? You start off with a small thing and you can choose to add in modules, like I said, like configuring ports and things. You just say, I'm going to add this module over here and that module, and that changes the functionality of your ports. You might have a oil refinery module, you might have a gas refinery module. Not really sure. And as we can see broader off to the left, you can see that there's definitely an awful lot different land structure. They've obviously built this. This is totally reclaimed. So we've got like harbor walls and things around this, and the road. The road goes all the way around. Now, is that an easy thing, or is this was something that they managed to do because they built a road in? I mean, it's definitely got a harbor wall on it. So that must be a thing. You must be able to do that and make that happen. Up at the top left, you got all this like earth, surface detail and various other bits and pieces. It looks a lot more lived. You know, it looks like there's an awful lot going on, and it seems to be there's a truck coming out of that shed. So that might be a different kind of a transport depot. So they've plonked down a transport depot there, and he's trucking out. Could be. We have some different. So this is obviously part of a major port and a major refinery. And the question is, how much of this is modular and how much of this is stuff that's just plonked down? But it does look like there's an awful lot of opportunity to change some of these big production assets. Interestingly enough, these are the only two we get to see in the current video. So we only get to see agriculture and we get to see this. I don't know. Does that mean the rest of it is a work in progress? What about machines? What about tools? What about forestry, for example? What does that look like? So yeah, questions. But, that's, I guess, what this is trying to tease us with, right? The next two are quite interesting, really, from a scenery perspective, but probably not an awful lot else in that regard. Obviously we see this jungle. It seems to be a lot denser, a lot deeper, and you have an awful lot more change in terrain, I guess. And that also ties in with the next one, which is the mountainsides, a la Switzerland kind of a thing, a la the Alps. And you have these grand mountains with the railway along the edge of the mountains, but without distorting the shape of the mountains. One of the issues we have at the minute is with the terrain stuff and with the way the roads work. When you plonk the road onto the terrain, it does an awful lot of distortion. So there's obviously some indication here that what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it very much more terrain based. Taller mountains, you've got much more hilliness, you've got greater different types of terrain, various other bits and pieces, providing a little bit more rich detail that we can build our cities and various things in, right? Right, and here we have one of the big ticket items of the actual trailer. Look at this shot. Is this in-game? It doesn't say that it's not in-game, and ignoring the fact that we've got oil rigs for a start, let's just ignore the oil rigs. Look at that sky! Look at that sky! And a rising stroke setting sun. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But look at those clouds. You got so much rich detail in the state of those clouds. And again, the terrain. And look at the cloud effects on the terrain. Look at the weather effects on the terrain. We've got active dynamic weather. We've got mist. We've got clouds. We've got, look at that sea. Look at the shape of that sea. Look at it, it's very calm. But look at the texture. Look at the detail. Look at the reflection. Look at the light, the ray tracing. Look at everything. Is this really what we're going to get? If this is really what we're going to get, I'm very happy. I mean, and obviously, hey, look, oil rigs, which is great because we don't really have any assets out on the sea, really. I mean, the sea's very sort of underutilized. It's just a place to move between. You know, whereas now we have the sea as a productive resource. We see oil. Are we going to see fisheries? Are we going to see some fishing coming in here? You know, is this the kind of thing where you have, you know, is this placeable? Do these exist already and you just connect to them? Or do you decide where to place them? And if you are deciding where to place them, how do you decide where to place them? Is there oil assets that you need to figure out where they are? Or you know, do they appear on an overlay and you get to choose? You've obviously got a marching line of oil rigs disappearing into the distance here. So, you know, what's the story with that? Are these all in one geologic resource? It all looks very, very interesting. Some very interesting things going on there. And if it turns out that this is what's being delivered, I think we'll all be very happy, right? These next two come as a package in the trailer, and the idea that they're selling here is efficiency and better planning gives you better results. You know, which is part of the game and part of a lot of these city builder games, right? You need to be efficient. You need to plan the best way of doing things. There's a couple of things interesting in this first one, which is first off, the density of traffic. There is an awful lot of traffic here, more than I would currently expect on Transport Fever 2. There is quite an awful lot of traffic. I'm a little bit disappointed that there's not really a lot of different kinds of car assets. You can see an awful lot of assets replicated through here, which is a bit of an annoyance. But there you go. One of the things that I don't see in here is traffic lights, which is interesting. I see pedestrian crossing lights, but if this was a major junction with a major set of traffic lights, I would expect an awful lot more catenary and an awful lot more understanding of what's going on here. What we do have is an awful lot of what appear to be immediately painted lanes and various other bits and pieces. There's a bit of some graphic distortion going on in a couple of little places that I can see, which is fine. I mean, I guess it is what it is. We have these interesting crosswalks. Are they automatic? Can you put them in? You know, what's the story? At least 2 or 3 of them look automatic. But this diagonal one, I don't know. This looks to me like it's the kind of thing that you would have to place yourself, which is very interesting. So then we have this, which is obviously supposed to be a very crowded junction. Then we move on to the next one. And here we have what is supposed to be the tidied up junction. Now there are a couple of things that do remain, and that parallel crosswalk is one of them. So I wonder if that's not automatic, because that's not necessarily where you might want to put a crosswalk, but I'm not really sure. We see the catenary for the tram. I still don't see an awful lot in terms of traffic. I see what appears to be the pedestrian traffic lights, but I see some catenary on the left hand side. So maybe this is the kind of thing where they're saying you can get to change how to add in traffic lights and things. Might be, not really sure. Again, probably not a huge amount. It's hard to tell from the assets because there's not an awful lot more cars, obviously. And probably the bus lanes is fine. We currently have bus lanes. That's not a drama. The trams perhaps a little bit more interesting, because that's probably not how trams would spawn in now in Transport Fever 2. And I wonder, is it a case that you can then decide where to put trams? For example, this is a central tram system. Yeah, Stockholm and various other places have trams that run down the middle of the road. Maybe you don't want trams that run down the middle of the road. Maybe you want trams that run down the side of the road, like a bus. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see just how flexible that tram system is. It's also a little bit weird in terms of how the various bits of the tram areas that are not road pavement come in, and a little bit of a weird thing happening with this end here that's gone a funny color. It's gone red, whatever reason. So I don't really know about that. I have questions. There's more questions about this one, but it's a little bit more finer detail, and probably the kind of minor things it's likely to change. But I mean, I guess the idea is that they want to focus more on traffic, perhaps, than you would currently focus on in Transport Fever 2. I also find this one quite interesting. Again, there's a couple of things we've probably already touched on, to be honest. The fact that we've got this train running down the middle of the city, probably more in keeping with a kind of an Asian kind of theme, where they're less bothered about trains running through the middle. Not to say it doesn't happen in other places in America, some of the large cities in America, New York and maybe Chicago and places like that, whatever. But we obviously have this train. We got these interesting barriers. We've obviously got these barriers that we currently don't have in the game. So we've got these placeable barriers that come in. The tracks themselves, they look pretty good. They look like they're blended pretty well together. And obviously this kind of New York subway car that's coming down the track and disappearing up the track looks very interesting. I don't think I've seen anything like that. We've got catenary, so it's obviously running off catenary. Catenary above, no electric track underneath. It'd be interesting that they haven't done like an electric rail, which again is common in some parts of the world, because the ground electric rail would be an interesting addition to make. We got a lot of traffic. It's a very big city. Obviously, it's a very big city. Look at it. It's huge. It's massive. Not a lot of people walking. An awful lot of people going by car. We've got bus lanes. We've got a bus lane detouring off to the right, so it looks like maybe this is a bus only route which detours off, and you can see there's some traffic lights and various bits and pieces. We obviously have the pedestrian flyover, which is great. So how important is pedestrian access going to be? You've got buses on the right side and buses on the left side, so what does that mean in terms of pedestrians? Do we have to satisfy our pedestrians' needs more in terms of getting them around alternative modes of transport? There's no cycleway. It's definitely steps. So this is not a mixed pedestrian cycleway. I haven't seen cycleways yet. I'm assuming that cycleways aren't involved in this one, which is interesting given where we are in the current state of the world. An awful lot of cities are talking about, and the complexities about, what they call alternative modes of public transport. Buses, trams, by foot, electric bikes, and so on and so forth, and things like that. So we've got all those kind of bits and pieces, but there's still some things missing. But again, look at how far we go into the distance. This is a big place, a big city, and definitely quite a few things happening. Right, and the last two shots that I want to have a look at here are the departing and ending part of the trailer. And I guess, there's a couple of big things I want to take away from this. The first is the scale of the city. Look at the size of this city. If you have a look at this, or two cities, it may not be one city. We have this massive city, very much Asian themed, very much right on the water, reclaimed land, a massive reclaimed airport. We haven't seen anything on airports yet. This massive reclaimed airport you've got all over there. You've got the massive city in the distance. Huge assets in terms of skyscrapers and various things. We've got the suspension bridge style, which we currently have. We've got another suspension bridge style, which we do not have, which is the humpback one. And then in the distance, we have another kind of bridge. Now, is that just not rendering in properly, or because of distance? Or is it another style of bridge? Hard to say, but we've got a lot of bridges, that's for sure. We've got some massive mountains in the background, so we've obviously got this, these Californian style mountain chain stretching way off into the distance. How big is this map? It disappears off quite some distance. And then in here in the foreground, we've got an awful lot of things happening. We've got these motorways with these blending on and off ramps that we've seen before. It looks like we've got buildings way down in the deep down in amongst all of these trees. We've got some assets popping out of the trees. We've got a sort of a train line immediately off to the left, but we've got these merging lanes which will give us considerable choice. We've got some seriously elevated trains and a whole mixture of levels and various other bits and pieces. We've got a bunch of assets. We've got this massive port refinery object, which I'm assuming is probably the port that we see earlier is probably on the other side, knowing how the developers put these things. They'll like build one massive city, and what you're looking at is one massive city on a trailer. But we have this like recreational bay area with this what appears to be recreational craft. So we have these jetties with small boats and various other bits and pieces. Does this matter? Is this entirely visual style? The assets and the buildings down there, they look kind of odd. They look different to what I would normally expect. They do seem quite crowded in. And the same on the right hand side. There's some jumbled in assets that look a bit weird. I don't exactly know what's going on there. Very interesting. What that ties very neatly into the next one, which is very interesting, and that is this nighttime. That would just be it for me. The whole nighttime thing, that's definitely something that I was talking about. The ability, because we have all these things, we have various assets with light placements and various other bits and pieces, and it would be so very, very good to be able to see the map at different times of the day. And now that we do get to see it at different times of the day, some different things possibly pop out. It's a slightly different elevation at this point. It rises up a little bit more, and we get to see down a little bit more. So we can see definitely there's an awful lot more depth to the city. There's an awful lot more things happening in terms of industrial. That port area looks considerably busier in terms of what's going on. Doesn't necessarily make it easier to understand what's going on, but we do get to see that there are a lot of things going on. We can see there's passenger ships. We can see the airport lit up at night. We can see what is presumably contrails from aircraft, and we can now see way into the distance where we can see that there's this city, and then presumably there's a much larger city way off in the distance, or this is part of one great big massive city. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Is this three cities that have grown together? Is it one enormous city? We simply don't know. But it's definitely very interesting, and it would be very, very good if we did have this. So that's it. I'm going to leave you on this one because I think it's a lovely screenshot of what could be achievable in Transport Fever 3. And there's a lot of things to talk about and a lot of things to think about, and I'm sure we'll find out between now and the release date in 2026, whenever that is. I will try and keep up to date with all of the things that are coming out on Transport Fever 3 as and when I can, and try and bring those to you if you are not keeping an eye on things, or if it's only a casual interest for you. But it looks like Transport Fever 3 might be trying to fill the gap left by City Skylines 2, and why not? I say, if Paradox Interactive aren't going to get their finger out and sort out the issues that they have, then Transport Fever 3 might. Remains to be seen how detailed it is. At this stage, what we've seen is largely cinematic. We haven't heard any details on how production chains are going to work, on how any of this stuff is going to come together, planning. Presumably they'll still have mods, what the mod store is going to look like, or how that's going to play together. How much of this stuff we can share, will it be cross-platform, etc., etc. There's a whole bunch of other questions and things that have yet to be answered, and I don't want to throw too many of those in here, but certainly, if it's interesting to you, go and have a look, go watch the video a couple of times, stop it, pause it, rewind it, check it all out, and see what you think. And I hope you've enjoyed this update. Do click the like. If you are liking, do subscribe. If you're subscribing, consider to be a member of the channel. And if you have any comments or questions, thoughts of your own, things that you would like to see in Transport Fever 3, please drop them into the conversation below, and we'll all try and stay abreast of what's going on, shall we? Ta-ta for now.